Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Wings on Air podcast series. I am your host and National Vice President, Justin Vence, and today we are excited to have you back for our episode 4. And in this episode, we'll actually be talking to a Silver Wings alumni, McKinnon Pierce, who actually serves as a national advisory consultant for the Silver Wings side of the house. And so we're excited to have her be willing to take the time to talk on our podcast series about building your brand. And so we encourage all of those chapter presidents or anyone who's listening who wants to learn how to build your brand and what kind of steps you need to take to really get your brand out there and so forth, to really take notes and hear what she has to say, because she's a professional and this is her job. And so without further ado, we hope you enjoy this episode. Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome back to Wings on Air. I'm your host and National Vice President Justin Vence, and today we're going to be recording our episode 4 of Wings on Air. Today we have our National President, of course, Michael, and we have our guest speaker, McKinnon Pierce. So, McKinnon, if you'd like to introduce yourself, just kind of give us a little bit of a background so our speakers can kind of understand where you've come from, what you've done so far, what kind of career you're in, and so forth. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Well, hi, Michael and Justin. Thank you both so much for having me. You guys know that I'm a big fan of this podcast and initiative, so I'm pretty honored to be included in your lineup of some pretty awesome guests. I graduated from Auburn University in 2016, and I got my degree in communication. And I've always been a people person, so I really wanted to pursue a career that allowed me to marry my passion for writing and creativity and relationship building as well. And communications was just a really perfect fit for me. And Silver Wings really has to get an honorable mention here because when I was in college, I was able to hold a few leadership positions in Silver Wings. And I really have to credit the organization for honestly every opportunity that I've had since college. And I promise I'm not just saying that because I know who I'm talking to. It's really genuine. I mean, some of the relationships that I've built from my time in Silver Wings led me to my first job in public relations for the Air Force Association, where I had some incredible experiences and got to meet some really great people. So now I manage social media and content for the University of Delaware's institutional brand. And social media is really a critical component of brand building and awareness, and especially in the higher ed world, as I'm sure you both know. So I'm charged with building creative experiences and meaningful connections with our current and prospective students across all of our digital platforms. So on a day-to-day level, that can look like working with other members of my team to produce videos or voiceovers, go on photo shoots, and creating other kinds of content to take a really data-driven approach to everything we do for our audiences.
Hey, awesome. Thank you so much, McKinnon. And I can certainly vouch for that. You're extremely experienced, especially since I'm the public affairs officer in my detachment, and I reached out to you, McKinnon, and all of this, the content you gave me was super helpful. I actually used it and got so much out of it. And so, it's awesome to be able to use our resources and especially the professional relationships that we build in Silver Rings. So I can certainly attest to that as well, as can Michael. I'm sure, just with the time that we've been in here, I can't wait to see how they transfer over to when we're actually in our professional careers, how we're going to be still utilizing those avenues of connections and so forth. So that's awesome. But yeah, so McKinnon, today, the topic that we chose with you, because of your background, which would be awesome, is building your brand. And so that's kind of what we wanted to talk about. And so we can kind of go around and just give an example of what it means, like what it is, building your brand, and what it means exactly. And so I guess for me, when I think of building your brand, it's just, whatever organization, in terms of the organizational aspect, in this case, Silver Wings, like what does it mean to build your brand? And I think it's, just bringing out awareness, having the public understand what your organization is and building a positive credibility for it so that people can really look positively at it and know the good things that can come out of it and what they can benefit from it, so forth, and not necessarily have this negative look at it like, oh, that's the organization that does this, but rather, oh, this is the organization that creates future leaders in professional development. They send civilians into the the Air Force or in all areas of the world. And so that's kind of what I think about it. And so, uh, we'll kind of go around. So Michael, I know you had your idea, like what to you building your brand means. So you can go ahead and kind of introduce that.
Yeah, really building your brand to me is like you mentioned earlier, really the avenues of people that you know, all about networking. And what we've really done this year, what I've been able to do is network and meet new people. And one of those is Sully, or Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger, who I'm proud to say is our national honorary president. But meeting his team and working with him to be able to get him to be our national honorary president just it's been an honor and truly something to nobody else really gets to experience unless the role you're in.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's honestly has to be one of the most exciting things that we've done so far, and I'm sure Michael could say, with choosing our national honorary president, we kind of reached for the stars, and that's a whole nother story for a different time. But we honestly didn't think it would work out, and it didn't. So we were happy to have Chesley Sully as our national honorary president. But McKinnon, we want to hear it from the professional. So, what does it mean from your experience and your background? What does it mean to build your brand?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I think you guys both gave some tremendous answers, and I'm kind of jealous that I didn't give them myself. But to me, building a brand, and I think this really applies from a personal brand perspective and an organizational brand perspective, is really at its core just about introducing yourself. And it's about shaping public perception and opinion about who you are and what you're all about, right? So making sure that you have a firm understanding about your mission and values and goals and where you want to take them is really the foundation of brand building to me. And, Michael, you mentioned Captain Sullenberger, and I think that that's a huge brand opportunity for Silverwings. So, I'm really proud of you guys for that achievement. And like you said, reaching for the stars to really build your brand and continue that mission and grow your values is really important.
Definitely. And, I think a lot of people who are going to be listening to this, they'll gain an understanding. Okay, so that makes sense, like building your brand. But I think an important thing is like, where do people start? And so I guess one question I have is it only up to the leaders to build your brand, or is it everyone's job? Especially when we have the followers and then we have the leaders. So, with leaders being the head of the organization and representing the organization itself, and then you have the members, the followers. Who is it up to? Is it everyone's job? Is it just a certain person's job?
That is such a huge point, too. A great question, Justin. It's really important to have a clear direction that you want to take your brand. So, having leaders who are really invested in branding and promotion is really crucial to help your organization get there. But I like to think at the same time that everything that touches your organization impacts your brand. And an organization at the end of the day really revolves around people. That's people who are providing a service or a product, people who are receiving a service or a product, and everyone in between. So it's absolutely everybody's job to contribute to the brand mission. And you can do that by, just wearing a t-shirt or a sweatshirt with your brand logo on it or something like that. Or, even just making sure that your personal social media has a professional appearance to it or is locked down so that you're representing your organization in a really great way.
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned the apparel. I think that's something that a lot of people can kind of overlook and not really think about too often. I know for us, whenever I get like a sweatshirt or a shirt for any organization, it's like, oh, it's just so cool, especially if it's really neat looking. And now that we have one of our assistants for our national public affairs officer, Kirkland, she's been doing an awesome job. She designed all these shirts and all these products. And it's so exciting, because it really shows, when you're able to produce all these different kind of products, it just makes your organization so much more official. And Silver Wings has been around for so long. It's so long, but to kind of see these things when people actually see the products they can create, it's such an encouragement. But it also kind of builds morale. When you kind of wear a shirt, especially for us, we have NatCon shirts or we have exec board shirts. When you wear those, like it reminds you of all the stuff that you did during that time, and it's super exciting. It just reminds you of the fun times that you had. But yeah, so with that, where do you start exactly when you build your brand? So I know a lot of people, it's such a broad topic. So if you're starting with an organization maybe that just started up, like where do you start? Or let's just say, a person is starting a new chapter at a school, the chapter just activated. Like where do you start with building your brand? I know you said social media, but is there anything else that needs to go into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so multifaceted, and your brand is really, everything that people hear or think or say or know about you and your organization. So it's important that you're the one who's setting those standards. So for me, the best place that I always recommend to start is just by doing a basic analysis of who your audience is. Or, if you're just starting out, who do you want your audience to be? And this is probably the most important thing that you can do because, if you don't know exactly who you want to be reaching, it's going to be really hard to reach them. So if you're a new chapter who's just starting out, you want to know, what kind of student do I want to target? Every student, sure, but that's kind of, casting a wide net. So if you can narrow that down a little bit to something that's a little bit more achievable, and attainable, that's a great place to start.
Definitely. That's really awesome. And so, a lot of times we talk about building our brand up. Do you think it's possible, and I feel like I already know the answer to this, but for a lot of people, is it possible to harm your own brand, with whether it's like neglect of certain aspects or just taking certain actions that people may view differently? Is it possible to just kind of brick by brick kind of tear down the brand of your organization and harm it?
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, it's very possible and often all too easy. And, I mean, it could be harming brick by brick, or it could be harming by everything coming down at once. I think over the last 6 months, we've seen several examples of how quickly one mistake can unravel everything. So, of course, I'm talking on a big crisis scale, but, even on a smaller scale, it could be not posting or not having good customer service or not replying to an email. All of those things really could harm and, diminish your brand in the eyes of your audience or prospective audience. So making sure that, you're always thinking before you act, thinking through everything that you're posting, all of your messages, whether it's verbal or written or experiential even, and look at everything from all sides, and especially from the sides and perspective of your audience. And it's important to play devil's advocate because if something does go wrong, you want to think through your response too before you hit a panic reply, right? And even if it's something small scale, you want to be responsive and be vulnerable and show your audience that you do care about them and lead with empathy, right? So just having all of those things front of mind and putting people first is always going to be huge in rebuilding your brand, because that's always possible. And I think brands are very resilient for the most part, and people are very flexible, or should be very flexible at least. So it's important just to keep going and keep pushing. And if you make a mistake or if something happens, even if it's something as small as you just have neglected your social media channels for a while, it's always important just to pick up where you left off.
Yeah, and those points I really liked, and one in particular is how you mentioned, replying to emails and customer service. And I honestly didn't really think about that as much until you brought it up. And you know, just thinking about it, it really is so important because I can't tell you how many examples. Me and Michael just make it a priority to answer people as fast as we can. And some days we're a little bit slack a little bit because we're busy, but for the most part we answer in a day. But I know it means so much to people when you can make fast, quick replies to the questions that they have. And we talk about this all the time, but when you can have those quick avenues of communication, you're not waiting 2 days or a day to answer somebody's email. You can really get stuff done, and we've seen that this year, and it's honestly so awesome. But from the perspective of building your brand, we've also seen this year that when people don't have those quick replies, when they're not communicating clearly, that people start to doubt. It's like, okay, well, this person says they're here for us, right? They say they're here to help us with this certain issue, and yet when I reach out to them, when I email them or try to call them, they never answer. And so it just harms the brand because we're a professional organization when they don't see that professionalism exemplified through these small little avenues of communication. It can be very, very harmful, especially when we need all the leadership to work together If certain leaders aren't willing to work with other certain leaders because they can't communicate well, they're not doing their job, then it's a domino effect. It certainly is going to affect everybody. Michael, if you'd like to touch up on this, I know you have plenty to say.
Yeah, definitely. And really, that does hurt the organization's brand, but really, I know it also hurts your personal brand because your name is attached to that position or that job at that point in time. And that's how people see you. Your possibly future employers will see you. So that really replying on time or just being attentive to what you're doing can really help you in the future or harm you. But McKinnon, I do have one question for you. Uh, what is like one piece of advice to college students uh, that are going to be graduating in the next few years or even this semester? What is one piece of advice as far as building their brand that you would recommend?
That's a great question. And before I answer it, I do want to give you both a shout out because one thing that you've been very successful in, and you guys have been very successful in a lot of things, of course, is really setting goals and being adaptable with everything that has been thrown at you over the past several months. And, I think that really applies to a greater, just brand operational standpoint that it's important to set those goals and understand where you want to get there or how you want to get there in the meantime. So, from a personal branding perspective, I think it's important for people who are graduating and students who are graduating this year in this very unique and difficult and challenging climate is to really maximize your digital presence. And I know there's going to be a deficit of experiences and it's going to be challenging to really kind of brag, so to speak, and show off and all the amazing things that you can do because you don't have those in-person experiences so much this year. So if you can really beef up your LinkedIn and start connecting with people in your network or people, in your peripheral networks, people who know people in your network, right? So building that, maybe creating a digital website portfolio so that you can show off some of these amazing projects and all of the hard work that you've done, whether it's in your major in college or in an organization like Silver Wings. I think those are two really great places to start and look at the things that you're doing really well and that are really impressive and that you're succeeding in and share those with people because you never know who's reading what you're posting and you never know who's hearing what you're saying and it could be a next job offer.
Definitely. I like you said, you're posting stuff. I know this is kind of like a personal thing, but like I know I tried starting this blog, and it just kind of reminds you of consistency and how I was really excited to do it. And then I think I did one, and then I never ended up doing any more, just because it just I kind of forgot about it. I got busy, and then it just kind of never really took flight as much as it should have. It's not completely dead, but it goes to show. I think when you're more consistent with things, it'll definitely uh, be a lot more easy. But I don't know, Michael, if you have anything to say on the points that McKinnon said.
Yeah, one thing I will add to touch up really on the LinkedIn part of it, since we are all in Silver Wings, definitely go on your LinkedIn, create a LinkedIn account if you don't have one already, and go in and mark that you're in Silver Wings on there. Silver Wings is listed as an organization, and definitely network with the people that are in the organization. So that's a really big point that I would say. Just adding that to your profile puts you with a network of professionals, college students that strive to really lead and really just do their best. So definitely go on LinkedIn and add that.
All right, and then McKinnon, we have one last question. This is probably a question I'm sure everybody kind of asks you, but you know, with us being in this pandemic and this COVID environment, we have a lot of organizations on our school, um, that have been adapting. But what would you say for Silver Wings or for anyone who's listening? Like when you're trying to build your brand in this kind of environment, what would you say are the biggest tips and factors that you need to take into consideration so that people will consider joining your organization over another one?
Absolutely. That's such a good point and question. I think that one of the greatest tools that we can use when building a brand through a crisis or a challenge like this is really just maximizing empathy and putting people first. And if you can do that genuinely, authenticity is always so key. And you can really lean into it because this is something that everyone on the planet has in common right now. And, so you, I think, can maximize this from a brand perspective without being opportunistic, but offering unique opportunities to think outside of the box for your audience. So, one thing that I've seen a lot of organizations, a lot of units struggle with, I think, just even in general, too, not necessarily in this COVID period, but is trying to quote unquote fit a square peg in a round hole, so to speak, and forcing an idea or an event or a concept that's just not working for you and your audience. I've seen a lot of organizations that rely a lot on in-person experiences try to translate them, from A to B into a digital virtual realm, when sometimes, you don't want to sit on a Zoom for a meeting or a pitch. You just want to do something different that's a little bit more interactive, maybe. So, this goes back to reading your audience too and listening to what they have to say and their feedback. But I think this is a real opportunity, this period that we're in, to really flex our creativity and think outside of the box and try to look at things from a completely different perspective. And I can give you an example of something we did at the University of Delaware. This spring, obviously, we had to postpone our commencement, which is one of the biggest events that's very in person of the year. And, instead of trying to do a virtual commencement or a virtual ceremony and just replace it that way, we opted to do kind of a virtual live spirit moment or an experience that's for the grads and for families that was really just meant to tune in and be celebrated and feel some pride. We had some fun celebrity shout outs because, we knew that we couldn't give a proper commencement. We couldn't give that proper celebration and opportunity that they deserved in that format. So kind of taking it and trying to look at it from a different perspective in a different way, I think was very successful for us. And from, for Silver Wings, from a chapter perspective, I think you can really do the same thing there and look at what kind of opportunities you would hold in person and really just take what the core mission and goal of those events or those activities were and see how you can take that essence, even if it's not a literal, community service event or a literal meeting or whatever it might be, and translate it into a different experience.
Definitely. I really like that. And, I think for me, especially is, when all this happened, my first inclination was to think, oh, we can't do anything in person. It's all over. We're not going to be able to do anything. But, like you said, if you really just got to focus on the core aspects of it and, kind of look at it and say, okay, we can't do it exactly the way we wanted to do it. But let's take what we're trying to do here, how we're trying to make people feel, the experience we want to give them, and try to, plug it into a different formula, a different area, and so forth. So I really liked how you put input on that. So we appreciate it, McKinnon. So Michael, I don't know if you have anything else to say on that.
Yeah, definitely. I really like that perspective. Really putting the people first. As I tell everybody that I talk to in Silver Wings, that the national staff, we work for you. It says it in the swim, but really it is true because our job is our job's to lead you and provide opportunities to better your future and your career. But definitely, thanks for being here, McKinnon. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to be on the podcast. But Justin, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, just a shout out again to you, McKinnon. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to be on here and to just be part of this podcast series that will help develop all the members of Silver Wings or anyone else who's listening who may not even be a part of this organization. We never know who's going to stumble upon these and find them and then may be beneficial. So we appreciate you carving, time out of your schedule to just give us input on your professional career, what you have to say on it. Alrighty, everyone, and that concludes our 4th episode of our Wings on Air podcast. We hope that everyone enjoyed the topic of building your brand and you learned something today. Most importantly, that building your brand is something that's important because it's what gets the name of your organization or your product or whatever you're trying to do out there. And so it's always important to take those necessary steps in order to do that. Sometimes you have to start small. Sometimes you have to start big immediately and be really good at promoting it. And, for the Silver Wings organization especially, it's something that we really want to push is building our brand, whether it's, getting our name out there to do better at recruiting
creating products to be able to distribute to people who don't know what Silver Wings is. All these are crucial in building our brand, because when we're able to build our brand, we're able to get our name out there and we're able to accomplish the goals that we want. So I hope that everyone enjoyed the podcast episode today in building your brand, and stay tuned for our next episode.